To introduce myself, my name is Heidi Chay. I am the district manager at Kenai Soil and Water Conservation District. I've been doing that since 2011, and a big part of my role has been to help develop and promote farmers markets here on the Central Peninsula in the Kenai and Soldotna area. And before I got into this work of local food advocacy and Kenai Soil and Water, I happen to have spent 15 plus years as a family mediator and group facilitator. So I've experienced my fair share of conflict and really strong emotions. Our topic today, according to the schedule, is managing stress and conflict during the market season and beyond. It makes sense to put those two topics together. For one, conflict is stressful for a lot of people. And for two, figuring out ways to manage our own reactivity and emotions so that we can stay calm and curious and respectful is kind of a foundation to doing conflict well. This session got dramatically shortened when we moved to the online format, which is absolutely fine. I think more topics, shorter sessions is just what we need for this, and I'm really pleased with how well it has gone. My instinct about the best way to use this bit of time is not to give you another slideshow, but to facilitate some conversation around positive responses to the biggest stressor that's been in the back of the room the whole time during this conference, and sometimes front and center. I know that there's a lot of wisdom and experience in this room, and I'd love to bring that out and give you an opportunity to share it. I see more of you coming up here. It's great for me to see the videos. In fact, because this will be conversational, I invite everybody to turn on your video, and I kind of need to, I think I need to change my screen so I can see everybody a little bit. That's better. So some of you might, however, really be looking. Do we have any kind of new market managers in this group? Relatively inexperienced market managers who really were specifically hoping that we would talk about conflict management at the market. You could raise your hand in the participant box or wave. Not seeing any signals like that. Oh, I see. There's one, Kaylee. I saw that. For this session, this will be a little bit more interactive than we've done in some of the others, and what I want to do is be able to see more of this participant box. Actually, I'm going to rely on Rachel. Rachel, you can probably see the whole participant list and tell me when people have a hand up there. So what I want to say is that on the subject of preventing and managing conflict at the market, the Washington State Farmers Market Association has a fantastic toolkit at their website, and I would refer you to Chapter 6, which has a really nice discussion of the kind of things that happen at the market and what you can do proactively and preventively. And if we have a little bit of time at the end of the session, I'd be happy to kind of highlight some highlights from that. I also think it would be possible to have if there was strong interest, it wouldn't take too many of you. If you wanted to have an AFMA sponsored workshop on this topic in particular, I bet we could set it up. And I see Robbie nodding there. We could do that another time. And oh, 2 thumbs up. Thank you, Robbie. And we could do that at another time.
Heidi, do you want me to tell you that there are hands up? Do you want me to interject? Do you want to just check in whenever you want to? But there is a hand up.
I bet that was, I think that was just in answer to my question, were there people that were interested in talking about this conflict at the farmers market topic, particularly new managers. So thank you. So Rachel, this would be when I want to bring up the poll question. And here we've been together for 2 days and nobody has taken our temperature yet. So this is to take the temperature of the room. And I'd like you to answer this one simple question.
I don't see the poll.
Sometimes,
does anybody see it?
I saw it for a second.
It popped up.
I saw it for a second. It was like a millisecond.
You didn't flash. Okay, here we go. Relaunch it.
There you go. I see it.
Okay, great.
It's a quick poll.
Right. Gotta act quick.
so how are we doing, Rachel?
We have 30 of 63. 50% have voted.
Okay.
So I can't. 32. They're still coming in hot. So give us a couple seconds.
Okay.
33. Jody Anderson's feeling her afternoon vibe.
Hey, Heidi, a question to follow up on that would be, okay, the health crisis, I think, is a scary part, but the economic crisis is a whole nother part for us farmers, vendors, and farmers market people. So I can be scared by the virus, but I'm also very concerned about my farm's short-term financial future.
Right, I get that.
Yeah, oh yes.
I get it. And yeah, I appreciate especially Ben Feldman's comments yesterday. He was reminding us of those who are being hit the hardest by this crisis, those who have already lost their livelihoods and are struggling to keep afloat, those who are worried about keeping afloat, those who are taking care of the sick. Okay, I'll finish that thought. Those who are taking care of the sick and at the same time worried about, infecting their own children, and then those who have lost loved ones. So thank you, Ben, for putting things in perspective, because a big part of managing stress effectively is keeping things in perspective. Okay, so I am seeing the poll results. I assume everybody else is as well. And this does not surprise me at all. So we've got a good half of us in the quite a bit category, and good 14% in the yep, scares the heck out of me. So can I close that, Rachel, or do you need to close that? I don't know if you can see, if you're in the gallery view, that you can see that we have some very meditative bread kneading going on with Marissa there. So and she waved us, so that's great. So I guess we are all facing just a little bit of pandemic stress at the moment, and feeling heightened stress at a time of infectious disease outbreak, I have read, is perfectly normal, even if that disease were far away and not directly impacting people that we know and love. And as I said, yeah, it's normal. So in preparing for this session, I decided to, try out to see how many manifestations of normal pandemic stress I could fit into one 3-week period. So I want to show you my checklist. That was a joke. Let me see if I can get it up here. There are several steps when you're trying to share your screen, and then it's delay. Can you see my checklist yet?
Yes.
Okay. So your results may vary. You may check some other different things on this list. But I just want to be real. I mean, this is what's happening for a lot of us. I'm happy for those of you who are sailing through, but it can be difficult. So this is a wonderful little handout that I found through the state of Washington with things we all know about good practices for relieving stress and ways to relax and focusing on what you can do and keeping things in perspective. Nice 2-pager. I'll be happy to share the link for that later. But in addition to working on my checklist, I also went in search of some good wisdom and inspiration to share with all of you. And my search took me to YouTube, where I found a great talk with the psychologist and author Susan David. Dr. David wrote a book called Emotional Agility, and her YouTube talk you could find by searching "How to Be Your Best Self in Times of Crisis." And I'll give you that link later too if you'd like it. I love her framing of the pandemic. She says, "Life is calling us out of our routines of thinking and judging to wisdom, courage, compassion, fortitude, and resilience." So what I thought I'd do is I'd share a couple of key ideas from Susan David, and then I want to hear from all of you. So one idea that I found worthwhile, we all have a tendency to say, "I'm stressed." And Susan David says, well, rather than saying you're stressed, try naming the specific emotion that's attached to your stress. Is it fear? Is it overwhelm? Is it loneliness? And while you're at it, she says, help your kids name their emotions, because they need that practice. And what's so powerful about naming our emotions is that I think we've all heard this idea that the emotional part of our brain, the amygdala, is the oldest part of the brain, the lizard brain. It's the jerk that gets you hooked and jerks you around. And then fortunately, we've got this thinking brain that came later in evolution. And by naming emotions, we begin to activate that thinking brain, which is the problem-solving brain, and it automatically begins to calm down the emotional brain. And with that thinking brain activated, you can actually figure out some constructive next steps, which is really helpful. Another idea from Susan David is this idea, I see you laughing, Jody, is, how do we approach our emotions? She says we live in a culture that kind of categorizes emotions as, these are the positive ones, let's all aim for that, and these are the negative ones, and when those happen, let's just stick those in a bottle and put them at the back of the cupboard. We don't ever want to look at them. We want to bottle them up and leave them aside. And what she's advocating is that we really approach our emotions with curiosity and compassion and accepting, because she says emotions are signposts. They're telling us something really valuable if we can only listen and pay attention to them. So what are your emotions telling you about what you value and what you need? Third idea from Susan David. She says, now is the time to really focus on this gap between stimulus, the pandemic, and our response. There's a famous quote, everybody's heard it. It's usually attributed to Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust detention camp survivor, but it was actually written by Stephen Covey in his book, First Things First. And the quote is this: between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. You've all heard that. So what Susan David is saying is, rather than mindlessly being like sucked into the Twitter feed and the news cycle and the next round of numbers or the next binge TV watching, really pausing to ask yourself, is this helping me? Are my choices serving the person that I really want to be? And what small actions can I take that will move me in the direction of what I value? So just a few ideas that I gathered up, and now I'd really like to open it up for some conversation, some dialogue. And as far as guidelines, when you have what I'd suggest, well, two things, yes. If you if you'd like to share, please raise your hand and Rachel will help me identify who's raised a hand there. And of course, to do that, you open up the participant list and use the raise hand button on the bottom, and we'll call on you. And another tip is when we're in the conversational mode, what you can do, I see everybody's got their microphones muted. I'm sure Rachel will I think what happens is Rachel unmutes all those microphones. You mute your microphone, and what you can do is just use your space bar as a push to talk button. So whenever you want to say something, push your space bar.
Nice tip.
So, go ahead, Rachel.
Oh, I just said that's a nice tip. Thank you.
You're very welcome. So I have shared several ideas about coping with the pandemic, and what I'm interested in hearing is, what resonates with you? What would you add? What have you found helpful or inspiring?
I think Amy's got her hand up. Amy, you can jump on there and press your space bar or just open it up and go wild.
That's the coolest thing, the space bar thing. Thank you, Heidi. I recall from our Women in Ag conference, however long ago that was, the 60,000 thoughts a day message about all we have is right here, right now, right? But we have 60,000 thoughts a day. And are your 60,000 thoughts a day positive, or are they negative? Are they fearful because you're thinking about the future? Are they worried because you're thinking about the past, or are you just staying in the moment today? And so that's what I've been trying to do, because this is scary shit and we don't know what's happening with our economy, with so many different things, but you're still here right now in this moment right now. And if you can just focus on those 60,000 thoughts a day, every time you notice it, be positive. That's what I've been doing.
Do you have a favorite tip, Amy, for just like doing that pause? You can think on that one. You can think on that one. I see that Kaylee raised her hand. No? Okay. How about Kyra?
The space bar is not working for me, but I had, not just from experience, but a lot of stuff that I work with. I see people who work in jobs that take care of a lot of people, and market managers take care of a lot of people. So the focus becomes taking care of a lot of people. But I think I always say this to our market manager, but take care of yourself. So all of these ideas of like calming or thinking about your thoughts, like Amy just mentioned, all of those things are so important, because people are going to come up to you that are mad about where their spot used to be and where they're at now. And so it's you guys have the biggest job. You're carrying everybody's load. So you can't do that successfully without pausing and taking care of yourself. So all of these tips about self-care, don't blow them off and say, what does this have to do with my market? Because it has everything to do with how well you can receive all of the other stress buckets in the world that you get to deal with. My sympathy goes out to you. Just saying.
Yeah, Kyra. Thank you. Who else? Robbie.
I think one thing that has been helpful, at least for the folks that have been able to go to these different conferences, like especially the one down in Washington, is just knowing that our problems and our issues are not super unique, that other markets and other farms have all of these problems too, and being able to build a community and connections and support systems. I think that's one of the big reasons we started this association, is so it didn't feel like we were on our own with all this, that we had people propping us up and supporting us and cheerleading and wanting farmers and markets to succeed.
The network, absolutely. Of mutual support, and this is what a great group of cheerleading a great group of cheerleaders and mutual supporters. Anybody else with something that they'd like to share?
This is Jeanette Heidi. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead, Jeanette.
So yesterday I was so inspired by Kat Field's talks on, I love social media. It has really expanded my world. I went to the San Diego Farmers Market page and started looking at photos, and I looked at 20, 30, finally hours later, I was realizing I'd looked at over 400 photos that she had posted through the years. And it was just so inspiring to see the growth over several years of their farmers markets. And she just took lots of pictures of examples of different things and different ways they've solved problems, parking and recycling. And it was just really inspiring to see the changes and how they've addressed problems through the years. And I thought, well, there's so much out there. We live in a time of the internet, and I just read Charles Bingham's comment in the chat, and he likes more information, and I'm like that too. I like to get as much information as I can. And for some people that's overwhelming, but for others, everybody's different. So just getting more information and knowing that in every situation there is a silver lining, and wherever there's a problem, there's an opportunity. So I just try to keep looking for the opportunities. Like even in I noticed on your checklist there, sometimes the stress makes people, maybe our family members, more irritable. And so when I recognize that, I'm going, okay, here's an opportunity for me to grow and learn new ways of helping other people deal with their irritability. And so sometimes for me, it's just getting out of their space, letting them be irritable by themselves, and I go for a walk.
There you go. That sounds wise. And you've also illustrated that sometimes it's all right to get sucked into stuff that's really inspiring. What we want to be careful about is getting sucked into stuff that's kind of drains our energy and is negative.
Right. Thanks.
Thank you. Who else has something that they would like to?
I just want to, I don't know if you can hear me, Lois Rockcastle.
Where are you?
Yeah, I was originally going to be at another conference out of state, actually an obesity counseling conference, and of course that got canceled. So it's just been really nice to have all the effort that went into putting this on, because I have been potting up my 800 plant starts that I may or may not be able to sell at the farmer's market. But it's been really nice and, you know, kind of dissipated a bit of the isolation that some of us are feeling being at home, you know. So I just think it's been really good for people to get together and talk, and I felt really connected, and just appreciate that they went forward with the conference.
Thank you. Lois, where are you?
In the middle of my greenhouse in Eagle River. Just have a little family greenhouse that I've been doing some growing out of lately, mostly plants as a retirement dream. So yeah.
Yeah, I would second that. Just being with this group of people focused on a really positive purpose has also been a good thing. Who else has something that they'd like to share?
I do.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
This is Sarah, sitting in Washington. I wanted to kind of go off of what one of the gals said earlier about just kind of looking for the people that are solution driven and those types of things. I know that it's probably a little bit cliche right now, but the Mr. Rogers quote of look for the helpers, and also realizing that as market managers, we are those helpers, and we know we're not on the front lines. No, we're not in the medical industry and those types of things, but we're feeling this too. And I've seen some of the chat comments of just knowing that we hold a lot of that stress of breaking news to our vendors, and the success of them depends a lot on what we do. So we're those helpers too. And sometimes we kind of have to take a step back and realize that. And this has been super helpful, seeing not that everybody else is in misery too, but at the same time, it's been nice to commiserate and come up with solutions and just see each other's faces from far away. I was really looking forward to seeing them in person, but this was the next best thing for this weekend.
Great.
Hey, Heidi, this is Charles. My audio sometimes breaks down. That's why I had posted stuff in the chat box. But one of the big things too is what can you control, what can't you control, and separate the two. Because if you can't control it, be willing to kind of let some of that stress go. I mean, you just deal with it the best you can and move on. Whereas if you can control it, you get in and do change the path a little bit. And so it's just kind of making the decision as far as what you can control and what you can't.
That you were a little bit garbled there, Charles, but it came through that really we need to focus on what is within our control and let go of the rest, and keep coming back to that. What is within my control? What are the, and that can be as simple as, you know, here I am working from home for weeks at a time. You know, what are the 3 or 4 things that I'm going to make sure I work into my daily routine? You know, created a little structure, and what are the things that I can control? Anybody else? Because I think we are out of time actually. If we were planning to do one last grand prize, were we not, Robbie? You are muted.
If you want to take 5 more minutes to wrap this up, that's totally fine, Heidi.
Okay, well,
this is great. So
I also, yeah, I'm also looking for guidance from Jody, because I'm thinking that, yeah, just before we settle into that longer session, people should have time to like do what they need to do rather than fly right into that. But yes, let's make it take a few more minutes and make time for anybody else to share something that they'd like to share. Anybody else?
Hi, this is Tia.
Hi, Tia.
Yeah, yeah, I like the serenity prayer for, you know, for the things that I can change and the things that I can't. But also something that I learned in recovery that I've used when a lot of things go wrong all at once was writing down my fears and what I get angry about, because I know that if I'm addressing the world full of fear or resentment, I am not going to be looking for solutions. So that helps, and anybody could do that. You know, it's kind of, sometimes things are overwhelming, and sometimes things just suck, and sometimes people are just not nice people. You know, doing those exercises of writing down, you know, writing things down helps to take some of the power out of them, and helps me to look at, you know, that sometimes it's just okay to be sad or to cry or, you know, to be angry, but I can't hang on to that. And then finding the people that you can, you know, now it's hard, but you can still talk to people on the phone that are supportive and solution orientated. And then attending things like this conference, you know, finding things to do. And I really appreciate that you guys were able to put this online so that we could attend the conference and look forward to the future, because it's not always going to be like it is today.
Good point. Yes. Anybody else? Because Marissa, has something to share?
Yeah, I'll jump in here. One of the things that's been really wonderful for me is it's been a great opportunity to call my grandmother. You know, as a young person, I don't have much of a frame of reference for, you know, life and global events to this scale. And I've found a lot of solace in her perspective. You know, initially, a month ago, before a lot of people were really concerned about this pandemic, she's like, you know, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen in terms of our president's response to it. But even then, and still to this day, she has a phenomenal perspective. She's saying, you know, I've been through World War II, and we got penicillin out of that, and something really good is going to come from this. And I've found that, you know, my community of fishermen, and, you know, getting to interact with the ag sector like you guys, you know, I think people are redefining value, and they're recognizing that, you know, good nutritious food and clean water and shelter and, you know, people to hug are what's important in life. And so I think that we're experiencing some of the tumult of societal shift that's happening now, and I'm just holding on to the idea that we're going to be able to build some good systems from this.
Great point. Exactly. Thank you for sharing that. I see lots of positive responses. Great. So maybe that's about where we should wrap up timing wise, I think. That's a lovely closing comment. So thank you, everybody.